Hello and welcome to New Game Plus for another week. My name is Donald and I'm joined by Meg. How are you?
I'm really good, thanks for asking. How are you?
I am doing fine. I have played video games, which is surprising for a video game show, plus also surprising though considering we are in a bit of a drought as what happens around this time of the year.
Yes, I've really got to, because I work full time, I've really got to make sure I amplify when I am home and play the backlog of games that's been slowly growing over the millions of months since E3, but it's exciting, and the Steam sales, don't forget.
Of course, I too have several hundred games of unplayed games.
Yeah, guilty as charged, except now I've been riding the E3 hype, so all the games that were announced to have prequels and sequels, now I've taken the time to go back and revisit the games I missed when they originally came out many generations ago.
And do they still hold up now, well now compared to the hype of back then? Is the luster still there?
Hell yes. So Beyond Good and Evil 2 is the game I'm most looking forward to when it comes out eventually. Who knows when that's going to be. Yeah, I'm super sad about it. So I thought I'd jump on the OG and get the HD remake happening, and it's been one of the best rides of my life. Loved it.
No, it is a game that just exuded style way back when. I'm glad that people are still discovering that game to this day.
It was done way before its time, and the graphics are so gorgeous, and the character dynamics with all the personalities are really strong.
Yeah, no, it's a shame like Ubisoft has gone from that to effectively creating lots of open world games. I say that, but I've been playing through Assassin's Creed Origins about 6-8 months after release.
Exactly.
And it is a really good one of those.
I'm going to do some research on Cyberpunk soon and see where that all began. I think I'm really keen for that.
No, yeah, that is definitely on the far horizon, as well as Beyond Good and Evil too. But you know what isn't on the horizon, or is on the much shorter horizon?
It's a great segue.
This episode of New Game Plus, we review Captain Toad Treasure Tracker for the Nintendo Switch.
We also have your On the Level done.
Yes, talking about Steam and Nintendo eShop curation.
Yes.
Good luck trying to find games on that.
Pretty much, but also my highlight for this episode is the Australian Speedrunning Marathon, which Jack was at AVCon in Adelaide. So enjoy.
Yes, we have all of that this episode, so let's just get straight into it, shall we?
Hey guys, it's Cringe, and I've been keen as a bean for a re-release of Captain Toad Treasure Tracker for Switch pretty much since I got mine. See, I had a Wii U and I played Splatoon on it, and like Mario Kart and Smash and Wind Waker, and truthfully I wouldn't mind if there was a Wind Waker re-release on Switch either, but Donkey Kong and Captain Toad Treasure Tracker completely got past me on Wii U. Well, at this point, I've already done a review for Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze on Switch, so here are my thoughts on what I've played so far of Captain Toad Treasure Tracker on Nintendo Switch. The core gameplay of Captain Toad is pretty straightforward. Each level is a miniature garden, vibrant and full of secrets. Calling the game a puzzle platformer though might make you think there's a decent focus on the platforming. There isn't. Toad or Toadette can walk, run, and pull turnips out of the ground to toss at enemies, but since you can't jump, you need to be pretty strategic about your movements. Instead of just haphazardly jumping through a level like you might in Mario Odyssey, you need to pay special attention to enemy movement and attack patterns. Your primary goal in each stage is to reach the start, but they all have 3 gems to collect along the way. These gems aren't particularly hard to collect early on, but they become more fiendishly difficult as you progress through the latter half of the game. Each stage also has a bonus objective ranging from not getting damaged to finding the hidden golden mushroom. On top of that, after a stage is completed, you can also play through each level as a hide and seek to find the pixel Toad. Basically, there's a lot to do in the game if you want to, but if you're not a completionist, you can also just cruise through each level, picking up gems as you go, and still have a good time. The visual style can vary wildly from stage to stage, but the game is always bright, colourful, and full of detail. From exotic beachsides to grassy labyrinths and the lava-illuminated underground stages, it's all gorgeous on the Switch, whether you're playing on the TV or on the go. When Captain Toad was released on Wii U, it took full advantage of the gamepad, letting you interact with the world via touch, motion control, or having a second perspective. Obviously, the Switch can't really do all of these, but it provides pretty robust workarounds for the most part. Touchscreen duty is fine in portable play, but in TV mode, the Joy or Pro-Con's gyroscope is used as a pointer and a button is used to interact with the environment or to stun enemies. In minecart stages though, you just get the first person view, instead of the second, third person camera to provide a little context in a pinch. So I've had this thought with many of Nintendo's releases recently on Switch. Mind you, this might not be new, but they have this quality where a mechanic that you could base an entire game around might be used for a few stages and then be replaced by a completely different mechanic in the following stage. Games like Tropical Freeze, Mario Odyssey, and Captain Toad are these candy bars that just never stop being sweet. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker goes one further though, with its gorgeous visuals, its really deep gameplay, and its unapologetic quirkiness. It's my favorite game now on Switch and possibly this year as well, and I can only hope for a follow-up to come sometime soon.
Did you know that there are a lot of video games out there? At least 64,000 of them. And you probably own half of them in your Steam library. How do you sort through this staggering number of games and decide what to buy and play? Do you go for the ones that your friends are playing? Do you look to word of mouth or positive reviews? Do you just give up and play Fortnite like everyone else? Or do you take a browse through the various digital storefronts such as Steam or the Nintendo eShop? If you rely purely on these, I kind of feel sorry for you, because digital gaming storefronts are a hot, uncurated mess. The reason we have so many games nowadays is because it is even easier than ever for a developer to self-publish and release their game through digital marketplaces. We are far from the days when Microsoft, in the early days of digital distribution, would ration out its release slots on its Xbox Live Arcade like Willy Wonka's golden ticket. By the way, one of the precious chosen few was the utterly terrible Yaris, a poorly made advert game about the Toyota Yaris. If I'm going to stretch this analogy to the death, Yaris is definitely the Augustus Gloop of Xbox Live Arcade games. For one, both have incredibly terrible handling. Fast forward to today, and console makers are rightfully begging for new indie titles. Just look at Nintendo, which recently announced it wants to release 20 to 30 indie games per week on the Nintendo Switch. On the surface, this sounds great. For Switch owners, it's more games to play as they wait for the next first-party title. And for developers, it's an opportunity to offer their game to a new and enthusiastic audience. However, no console storefront, especially not the Switch eShop, is currently equipped to deal with even its existing library of games, let alone its aspirational 30 per week. The problem is that every game, whether it's the next great indie game or some rushed out mobile port, is given the exact same weighting on the new releases page. It's like a fancy restaurant wine list offering Penfolds Grange, followed by Chateau du Bathtub, wine by the jug. In the state that the eShop is currently in, aspiring Switch developers will see their game buried by shovelware, because Nintendo isn't going to reach this 30 number without a bunch of filler, such as this eShop gem, Rento Fortune Monolith, a cheap-looking Monopoly clone and, as an aside, the perfect demonstration of the folly of capitalism, one which would have the Monopoly man harumphing in outrage. One easy way to solve this is through curation, or the active highlighting of certain titles based on their quality or relevance to the audience. The consoles have a section for curated games, but these are almost always filled with big AAA titles. Just in case you haven't heard about this wild, bold concept called digital soccer. But if it sounds like things are bad on the consoles, Steam is here to tell you to hold its beer. There are over 25,000 products currently available on Steam, 7,000 of which were released in 2017. If you were to put each game on Steam end to end, it would stretch out to, well, nowhere, really, because we're talking about digital goods here. Come on. On a similar note, all the Steam games would fill 0 Olympic-sized swimming pools, be as tall as 0 Eiffel Towers, and would have as much brains as 1 Cricket Australia board. Steam has had a problem with surfacing new games for the longest time. Its many attempts at curation have failed, although we should expect experimental failure from a company that still can't count to 3. Instead of learning from its mistakes though, Valve is making a big new mistake by getting rid of the entire concept of curation, instead letting anything and everything on Steam, as long as it isn't illegal and straight up trolling. And yet the game One Troll Army is still up on the Steam marketplace. Come on, Valve. This has resulted in the inevitable flood of games on Steam. Some of these are from tiny studios or even solo developers that are absolutely chuffed that their game is available on the biggest gaming storefront. But then you have blatant junkware clogging the new releases section, and then you have Extractism, an innocent-looking 2D platformer made available on Steam, but it turns out that this game was hijacking its players' computers and using them to mine for cryptocurrencies. And on top of this, it was scamming players by trading with them a forged version of the rare Team Fortress 2 gun, the strange professional killstreak Australian rocket launcher. The genuine version of which is being sold for $130 on the Steam community marketplace. Valve has since taken down Extractism from the store, but here was a game that was purely designed to scam players, which was allowed to be sold on Steam thanks to its complete lack of curation. It was allowed to be sold right alongside reputable titles like No Man's Sky and Shower with Your Dad Simulator. Sure, that game may put you on several government lists, but at least it isn't actively scamming players. It is great that we are in a time when any legitimate developer, legitimate by the way, with an idea that anyone can find a buyer and that any player can have their needs met no matter how niche they are. Steam and the console storefronts should be adapting curation for the modern age of 75,000 games, but instead they're stepping back from it and from even the most basic of quality control. I wish you the best in sorting through the 88,000 games out there at the moment. Sorry, 90,000, 91,000, 90, oh boy, I better stop now. And that is everything that has happened in the world, ever.
So AVCon is Adelaide's anime and video game festival. It's held every July here at the convention centre in town. And if you're into video games, odds are one of the main reasons you're here, outside of obviously speedrunning, is the indie games room. It's not too dissimilar from something like PAX Rising at PAX Oz in Melbourne.
So I guess it's a smaller version, much smaller version, cheaper version for developers, and a much more, I feel like accessible area for people to play games, for developers to interact with people playing their games, and obviously free within the huge convention hall that we've got here. There's no charge for developers to show their games here, so they just got to put an application in. But also because I think it's a smaller convention, and that room is so devoted to indie games, so they're not fighting for your attention against Horizon Zero Dawn or God of War. You know, like everyone's not lining up for hours to see those huge games. If you're here, you're either seeing retro games or you're seeing indie games. So Nintendo's got a small presence here, but most of it is for indie games. So they've got that prime real estate, I guess. They are the reason, if you're into video games, to come to AVCon, is the indie games.
This year I had the opportunity to check out a few different games in the indie games room. One of the first ones that I checked out was Gambare. It is a soccer strategy game, which is, there's strategy in soccer, I guess. I don't really know how sports works, but it's not too dissimilar from something like a Final Fantasy Tactics or like a Fire Emblem, pretty much, except you're playing soccer.
So it's a tactical RPG soccer game that basically Final Fantasy Tactics meets soccer, and like with any other RPG, you can level up and equip new items, learn abilities, yeah, all that kind of stuff. So the main influence was Captain Tsubasa, which was one of my favorite animes when I was a kid. And there are some games that come from that anime, and so this copies a bit of the mechanics, but also other games like the Blitzball minigame in Final Fantasy X. Some from the Inazuma 11 games from level 5. So those three would be the main influences. So it's releasing next week on Steam on Thursday. It'll be on consoles by the end of the year, hopefully, depending on whether I have time to finish it or not. And they can find it on Steam just searching for Gambare Super Strikers.
So Cardboard Keep have developed a few games that we've covered here on New Game Plus. They've covered Warden, they've covered Puzzle Poppers. That was at the Unite showcase last year. At AVCon, they're showing off Witch Thief, which is a sort of 3D bullet hell game, and it has quite a few different sort of like inspirations or works that have inspired what you're seeing on show here.
So Witch Thief is a zany 3D bullet hell where you play a snarky witch on a quest to steal all the magic she possibly can. Naturally, the people don't want to give up their magic, so you got to dodge, duck and weave to steal the magic that you want from them. So my two most core influences for Witch Thief would be the Toho series and Legend of Zelda. So you'll see that the camera is much more traditional Legend of Zelda behind the shoulder, and yet the bullet storm is hectic, flying around, much more like your traditional Japanese bullet hell style game. What I'm really excited this time at AVCon and in the future cons I'll be going to is lots of new characters, lots of new dialogue and interaction between them, as well as a brand new weapon system that shows how you can use different kinds of weapons, maybe a slow heavy laser or a rapid firing fireball barrage to try and overcome your opponents, about how you enjoy playing the game.
So I don't get to play as many puzzle games as I'd like, but fortunately Quest has me covered at the Indie Games Room. It sort of takes advantage of the hiragana, katakana, those character systems, or character sets rather, from Japanese, and turns it into a cute sort of puzzle game that gets you learning those characters if you're not familiar with them already.
Quest is a cross between Dominoes and a match 3 game, but it teaches you how to read Japanese. Quest has 2 difficulty curves hitting the players simultaneously. They have the difficulty curve of the kana that they have to learn, and then they have the difficulty curve of the game itself. Most educational games, they're essentially just pop quizzes. Like, they just give you a question and you have to figure out the answer, whereas Quest is not that. It's a game that incidentally uses Japanese letters as the puzzle pieces. And as a result, the player gets hit with a whole bunch to learn straight away. Generally, though, I try to make it as forgiving onto the player as possible, increasing the opportunity of the player to just accidentally learn the thing. It's okay if the player forgets, they can just double tap the tile, learn the pronunciation again, it's cool. And after a while, they will learn it, and they do, because it's far easier to just memorize the dang tile and just oh, that's a car. I know what that is. I can do this level quickly now. We're definitely releasing on Steam. It'll be for Mac, iOS, Android. Time window, we're hoping by the end of this year or early next year, so summer.
So I flew down to Adelaide for AVCon, the anime and video game convention based here, but I also came down for another event, and odds are you might have actually come across it before online.
So speedrunning essentially is people try to play video games as fast as possible with no real limitations. So ASM is sort of an event where people who engage in this hobby come from all over Australia to down in Adelaide to exhibit their skills.
ASM, or the Australian Speedrun Marathon, is similar to events like Games Done Quick based out of the US. ASM has raised money for charity. Since 2016 it's raised over $9,000 actually, and they're raising even more for Beyond Blue this year. Speedrunning itself isn't new or specific to ASM, but what is specific to ASM is what the event itself asks of the runners at ASM.
At ASM it feels a lot more professional, feels like I can, I guess it feels like I'm contributing to something a lot bigger, so I want to be a lot more professional and sort of really think about what I'm doing more.
When you're doing the run, you also have to provide good commentary, because you're providing content to an audience that isn't aware of what speedrunning is. And also, I have to make sure I keep a filter on instead of being my normal self on my own stream, so on here it's much more professional.
I think you have to think about, first of all, being able to complete the run, and balancing that with what amazing things you can show off. Some things that might be a bit slower but look a bit fancier, you might put that into the run because that's what's going to entertain people, that's what's going to really draw attention. But also you want those more dangerous things that might be quicker, you might want to tone back on those. Even though you might have a slower run, you're making sure that your run can actually be the run.
ASM started as just a panel actually out of AVCon, but over time it spun out to be its own event being held here at the Uni of South Australia at the McGill campus. It's grown every single year since 2014, 2015, and with the growth of ASM, the growth for the need for those volunteers, the production volunteers that make it all happen, that grows as well.
We're all here coming from a variety of different places and different sorts of productions, but the skills are obviously transferable to this live stream event, and that has its own little quirks and fun as well. So
definitely quirks.
It's definitely a challenge. The biggest hardships with doing a live stream such as this, there's a lot of moving parts. We have so many different game consoles and inputs and different things that we need to make sure all work properly without any delay. Especially for the runners themselves, because they need to be very, very specific to do their tricks and things like that. Some of them have only got single frame windows to do things. The main part of this event is to help the runners get the times that they want.
There are a lot of people with different perspectives. Of course, the people working at UniSA are worried about tech and so on and so on. So there's different perspectives, I think. But from my perspective as coordinator, I would say it's about continuing a continuous goal, so to speak, of pushing that community aspect. So we've been really trying to reach out to as many people as possible, get as hold of as many subcultures, so to speak, as part of the speedrunning community, because every single game has its own community. So we're trying to reach as many people as possible and get them involved, because there are still a lot of Australians who are just, wait a second, what's ASM?
So I wouldn't really say that I was that involved with the speedrunning community before I actually came to ASM. This is the third time I've come to an ASM event. I've done a little bit of speedrunning before, but 3 years coming to ASM, it's easy to see how this acts as sort of a catalyst for the Australian speedrunning community and even just the speedrunning community in general.
For me, it makes me feel really proud. It makes me feel like I've accomplished something that other people want to be a part of, and something that I want to be a part of with those other people. Like, you think about the game-specific communities, I think, me and these other people are working towards this one goal in this one thing. But then I guess it's sort of different when I think of the Australian community, because it's sort of like a family almost. Like, I come here with Cameron and all these other guys, and I'm just like, just always feeling the love.
Yeah, everyone here is just fantastic to be around, so I recommend everyone, if they even think about coming, to just jump on board with it.
At the moment where we are, we're still growing, and I want to see us keep growing. But right now you can really see the Australian personality. We have fun with it. We mess around a bit, but we're still working towards that professional level, and we're still just trying to put on a good show. So I think ASM really represents that well.
It always impresses me the kind of dedication and the kind of execution that speedrunners can pull off each time one of these marathons goes through.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. I'm not that type of gamer, and I never plan to be, but I admire every single hour those guys have dedicated to perfecting their art.
You see videos on YouTube where people just spend hours and hours and hours just trying to pull off this one particular glitch in the game, one which requires basically perfect 1 in 60 perfect frame timing.
It's incredible.
And yet you have these people that have done it so many times that they're in a live crowd, like the Australian Speedrunning Marathon, or the game's done quick marathons. They can just pull it off like that.
Yeah, you've got to be really competitive, I think, and have something. How do you get enjoyment out of speedrunning a game? You're not really standing back and enjoying the scenery and the sound effects and stuff. I feel like you're missing a bit, but I'm sure they would have experienced the game at their own pace first, right?
Oh, of course, yeah. There's a reason why you decide to speedrun a particular game, and it's out of love or hate, sheer hate, so much so that you just want to break this game in every possible way.
I love what Jack reviews, and it was great that he went to Adelaide to experience AVCon, but the fact that the whole event was raised for charity, Beyond Blue, and they raised almost 5K, that's huge.
Yes, I mean, this is that's kind of the thing of these speedrunning marathons, that they are always so generous to the community. Like the European Speedrunning Marathon has raised several tens of thousands of dollars for Save the Children.
Massive.
And of course you have the Games Done Quick marathons, which every half year raises millions of dollars for Médecins Sans Frontières and the Prevent Cancer Foundation. So always good causes.
Massive. I really like watching content creators raise money for charities like that online.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
And of course, not to mention New Game Plus, we too, have our charity streams, the Hello Stream. So do keep an eye on our Twitch accounts, but as well as that, keep an eye on our various outlets for New Game Plus material, like our website, www.newgameplus.tv.
Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, the whole thing.
Yes, we are New Game Plus TV, one word, no spaces. Thank you very much for joining me for another week, Meg.
Always done.
Thank you to viewers, and we will see you next week.